Anyone who attempts to attack a professional wrestler is a braver, that should be stupider person than me. A rare club. Despite obviously not being a good idea, some fans have crossed the boundary and attempted to cause physical harm to people who are much bigger and tougher than them. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't end well for the attacker, but on rare occasions, it can sometimes be close to very bad for the intended victim. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 times fans attacked wrestlers. And before we start, one important thing to remember: don't try and attack professional wrestlers. Join us. Number 10, it's clobbering time. CM Punk, like all effective heels, wanted the crowd to hate him. He wanted them to boo him, to cheer on the babyfaces against him, and wanted them to see him get his ass kicked. He didn't want them to go one step further and put their hands on him themselves, however. After Ryback chased him off following his match with Vince McMahon on the October 8th, 2012 episode of Raw, the straight-edge superstar hightailed it into the crowd, seeking higher ground to create some distance between him and the big guy. While McMahon addressed Punk on the microphone, fans began shoving, prodding, and slapping the WWE champion. Eventually, Punk had enough and lashed out with a spinning back fist and a pie face to a fan behind him. Regrettably, the fan that endured the champ's wrath hadn't actually put his hands on Punk and was an innocent victim. The notably salty Punk subsequently expressed regret and apologized for the incident in a WWE.com interview, but the fans should have known better than to cross the line, and really, security should have done a much better job ensuring the safety of the performer in this circumstance. Number 9, losing the game. Heels being attacked is obviously a lot more common than babyfaces bearing the brunt of a fan's fury. But while wrestling on a 1999 house show in Berlin, Germany, one silly little idiot went after WWE's premier good guy and tried to attack then WWE champion Steve Austin. Stone Cold had just beaten Triple H in the show's main event when the fan jumped into the ring and went after him. Immediately springing into action, the game grabbed the fan in a waistlock and took him over with a hell of a suplex before laying in the punches in a bid to subdue the punter. Referee Mike Chioda got in on the act too, delivering some kicks of his own before security finally, after what seemed like an age, got the nutter out of there, with Hunter giving him one last good shot to the face as he was bundled through the ropes. Recounting the incident on his podcast many years later, the Texas Rattlesnake credited the cerebral assassin's quick thinking and thanked him for intervening, since he, as the hero, didn't want to have to fight the fan himself. Number 8, the Fists of Jericho. Chris Jericho has been around the block a time or 2, or 10, and has basically seen and done it all when it comes to the pro wrestling business. That extends to fans attacking or trying to attack him, which has happened on multiple occasions. The first time occurred when he was reigning as undisputed champion on the February 4th, 2002 episode of Raw. Y2J was waiting at ringside for his partner The Undertaker to make his entrance so they could take on The Rock and Steve Austin when some silly bastard ran at him and pushed him aside before being quickly tackled by security and then decked by Jericho. The second time didn't even happen in the arena, but as Jericho was trying to exit one in his rental car following a show in early 2009. Fans blocked his pathway, and when Jericho got out of the vehicle, several of them verbally and physically assaulted him while the wrestler screamed at security to do their effing jobs. He didn't say effing though, he said the real thing, the big rock star. And then in 2021, a fan tried to gatecrash his contract signing segment with MJF on an episode of Dynamite, causing Jericho to fire a warning shot before the fan could make it all the way to the ring. Number 7, flocking to Raven. Getting jumped by a fan who is running towards you is bad enough, but at least it gives the wrestler a chance to react and defend themselves. Raven had no such luxury when he was attacked by someone on the April 9th, 1998 episode of WCW Thunder. He was cutting a promo while sitting in the corner of the ring with his back to the turnbuckle, as he liked to do. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a fan appeared and pulled Raven out of the ring by his hair from behind. Amazingly, Big Scott remained composed and resisted the urge to pelt the perpetrator. He believed at first that it was Kanyon, the man that he was feuding with at the time, as the two had just discussed doing something similar on TV somewhere down the line, hence why he basically took a bump through the ropes. Not knowing what else to do after security hauled the fan off, Raven went back to the business at hand, and then his microphone cut out. Sometimes you just have a day, don't you? Number 6, don't hit the Hitman. Bret Hart has been through a lot over the years and amazingly come out of it on the other side as a healthy and happy person. There was Montreal, the tragic death of his brother Owen, the career-ending concussions, the stroke that left him wheelchair-bound, the 2 bouts of cancer. Honestly, the man's perseverance and fighting spirit is incredible, and we're all lucky that the legend is still with us. Which is why it really pisses me off that someone who probably couldn't even get into clown college attacked the Hitman while he was standing at the podium at the 2019 WWE Hall of Fame ceremony accepting the Hart Foundation's induction. The so-called fan made the major mistake of attacking Hart while he was in an arena with many of Bret's family, friends, and lifelong fans. Chief among them was the Revival's Dash Wilder, who made sure to give the knacker a little bit of a souvenir. No flips, just fists. The idiot, who we won't name and give any more publicity to, was charged with assault and criminal trespassing and held by police on a $1,500 bond. Number 5, a Latino Beating. While performing as one half of the despised pro-USA tandem Los Gringos Locos in Mexico, Eddie Guerrero was used to having to fight his way back to the dressing room after matches, such was the hatred that fans had for him and his partner, Art Barr. While wrestling Rob Van Dam live in the main event of Raw in a ladder match no less, being rushed by an unruly spectator was probably the last thing on Eddie's mind. But that is exactly what happened, the fan coming in while Eddie was halfway up a ladder, attempting to push him off. Luckily, Guerrero managed to see the fan coming out of the corner of his eye and jumped a split second before he was pushed. He landed on his feet and was able to get one good right hand in while security subdued the fan and got him out of the ring. Eddie later wrote in his autobiography that he at first thought that it was Crash Holly, as the fan was wearing similar street clothes to the Houdini of hardcore. When the confusion passed and Eddie realized that it was just some bellend from the audience, he saw red, and the fan was lucky that rest got to him before Guerrero did. Number 4, assault on Planet Jarrett. Some would say that the TNA Impact Zone's worst crime was popularizing the "this is awesome" chant, but one audience member at a Universal Studios taping tried to commit an actual crime when he attempted to attack Jeff Jarrett. Perennial NWA heavyweight champion Double J was the top heel at the time, and one fan wearing a Rey Mysterio replica mask, oddly enough, had had enough. After being goaded by Jarrett, the fan hopped the barricade and tried to get into the ring. He didn't quite get all the way into it, however, as he was met by Jeff, then a referee, then security, then James Storm, then Samoa Joe, all of whom looked like they were happy to have the excuse. Tip to any wrestling fans out there, wearing a Rey Mysterio mask doesn't actually make you Rey Mysterio, and you will get your head kicked in if you try something like this. Amazingly, not too long after this, Jarrett would meet Joe in a fans' revenge lumberjack match, where a mix of real and planted fans were stationed at ringside with leather straps, ready to belt the chosen one should he venture their way. Number 3, a savage beating. If my plan was to hop the barricade and enter the ring uninvited, then I think I would probably pick any other time than when both Randy Savage and Kevin Nash are in there. Some presumably drunken Mark fancied his chances during the May 17th, 1999 episode of WCW Nitro, trying to get in as the Macho Man was laying waste to Big Sexy. Now, Savage was known to get set off and lose his lid at even minor infractions, so the fan entering into his danger zone sent him into a rage. He actually took the fan away from security and referees who were trying to hold him back, bringing him into the ring where he took him down and leathered him with hard punches to the face and head. Randy was so dialed in that he tried to push away security as they attempted to defuse the situation. Had Nash been the aggressor here, you would fancy him to handle it in the same way. As we saw when a fan attempted similar at the 1996 Bash at the Beach, Big Daddy Cool puts in twice as much effort while shooting than he does while working. Number 2, Rollins with the punches. Seth Rollins has had a couple of close encounters with fans over the years, always on bloody Raw. On the September 7th, 2015 episode of the WWE flagship, Rollins, then reigning as United States and WWE champion, was joined on the ramp by a spectator who had hopped the rail. The architect simply continued to make his way to the ring while the fan was ushered away. Then, almost a year later, on August 15th, 2016, a fan made it into the ring and squared up to Seth while he was cutting a promo. Rollins gave him a little shove before security arrived and got him the hell out of there. The Drip God wasn't so fortunate on the November 22nd, 2021 episode of Raw, mind you. On that show, he was charged and taken down with a tackle before a sea of bodies pried the assailant off of him. Seth got a lot of flack from the old boys club afterwards, as they believed he looked weak and admitted that he was frightened by the situation and that made him a bad heel. Or perhaps, he's a new father and was blindsided by a lunatic who could have had a weapon or anything on him. Just a thought. Number 1, striking the Viper. A fan hopping the rail? It happens. A fan hopping the rail and getting to rush a wrestler before being dealt with by security? Not great, but it happens and usually ends without anyone being seriously hurt. A fan hopping the rail, getting into the ring, stalking someone for several seconds, and then smashing one of the biggest stars in the industry in the bollocks? Well, it happened once, and it happened to Randy Orton in 2013 when WWE were on tour in South Africa. The Viper had just beaten Big E in Cape Town when the deranged rubberneck, who fancied himself as something of a wrestler himself, delivered the low blow. Orton sold it since his back was turned and he probably thought it was Big E doing something post-match, but then shrugged it off a la Super Cena when he realized that it was in fact an audience member. Security eventually got the fan out of there, but not before the Legend Killer gave him a boot to the head and said goodbye using sign language. WWE pressed charges against the man who, believe it or not, thought that this stunt would earn him a contract instead of a black eye.